Hi guys, welcome to grammar test number 1. I apologize I don't have any awesome hats tonight because it is about 10 o'clock and I just remembered that I had to do this. So we are going to enjoy some commas together. This is going to look a little bit different than the reading test because I'm not going to read the passages. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the question first, and then I'm going to go back and read whatever part of the little letter or kid excerpt they want you to read. All right, so please follow along and make sure that you are pausing so that you can look at all the answers after I read it, okay? The beauty of YouTube is that you can pause it. Just like the reading test, the expectation is that you eliminate answers. All right, there are bad answers in grammar too. Get rid of them before you move on and pick one. All right, here we go. So, question number 1. John realizes that his topic is too general. Which of these will best help him choose a more specific topic? A, reading humorous stories by famous authors. B, choosing one amusing incident to describe. C, asking friends to tell him their funniest jokes. Or D, thinking about a comical story that he enjoyed. So his goal is to write a funny story. He wants to write a funny story about an experience he had while he was cooking. The question is asking you what he should do in order to pick a more specific topic. Pause now. Eliminate some things. Pick something that will make it more specific. All right. Number 2, which of these will best help John organize the events in his story? A, writing his story from the first person point of view. B, thinking of a good title for the story. C, writing an interesting first sentence. Or D, making a story map of key events and details. Again, we're looking for what's going to help him organize the events. Events are just the things that happen in the story. Pause. All right, on to number 3. So we're going to skip past this big letter for just a second, and we're going to go to number 3. The letter is a rough draft. So I can see at the top it says, here's the first part of John's rough draft. Okay? So if it's a rough draft, we know that it's going to have some mistakes. Number 3, John decides to add an additional detail after sentence 3. Which of these sentences would be best? So we're going to go back up to sentence 3 and read it, and your job is to think, what would make sense to put after this? All right, from the top, I'm now in his rough draft. One Sunday a few weeks ago, as I finished my weekend homework, I remembered that I was supposed to contribute a batch of Mom's homemade brownies to the school bake sale. Glad that I had not forgotten, I went looking for Mom to tell her what I needed. I found her in the dining room with books spread out all over the table. So now take a look at those sentences in question number 3 and figure out what makes sense to go next. Question 4. Which of these is the best way to combine sentences 12 and 13? When we combine a sentence, we want to make sure that we don't have repeated information. We also want to make sure that the meaning of the new sentence is basically the same as the meaning of the old sentences. So we don't want to leave anything out. All right? So, again, our question is, what's the best way to combine 12 and 13? Going back to John's rough draft, sentence 12 says, I started to point out that technically I had not waited until the last minute. Then I reconsidered. So here are your choices. A, I started to point out that technically, I had not waited until the last minute, then I reconsidered. B says, I started to point out that technically I had not waited until the last minute because then I reconsidered. C says, I started to point out that technically I had not waited until the last minute, but then I reconsidered. And D says, I started to point out that technically I had not waited until the last minute, since then I reconsidered. So pick the one that doesn't sound awkward and that isn't a run-on sentence. Okay? Next, number 5. Which sentence should John delete because it does not belong? Our choices are sentence 17, 18, 20, and 23. We need to get rid of the one that doesn't belong. So I'm going to go back up into the rough draft, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read that last paragraph. All those sentences are in that last paragraph. So listen for the one that seems like it's out of place. I thought about protesting, but Mom had a look in her eyes that said, "Don't mess with me." What if I made them? I asked hopefully. Mom raised her eyebrows. I could tell she was intrigued by the idea. After pondering it for a few seconds, she agreed that I could make the brownies on the condition that I clean up the kitchen when I was finished. She found her recipe book and told me that I could find all the ingredients either in the pantry or the refrigerator. Mom has about 1,000 little magnets stuck on the refrigerator. I felt a little worried as I walked into the kitchen, but I was sure that I could handle it. After all, how hard could it be? Besides, Mom was in the next room just in case I needed her, though she had forbidden interruption for anything other than an emergency. So figure out which sentence does not belong. All right, we are going to move on to the next video.